Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Between the Leaves. Joining me today is Gillespie Mitchell and Juliana Smith, and our special guest today is Anna Swayne from our DNA team. Glad you could join us.
Thank you, thank you.
Super fun. So we're going to talk about DNA today, and I thought we'd maybe kick it off with a question about how many people in your immediate family, or however you define that, have been tested. Anne, let's start with you.
I am so much the novice at this one. I've gotten myself tested, and I've gotten a sister-in-law tested, and now I'm trying to get all my cousins tested. So I am getting the kids, getting them out there, convincing them, and I think that I've got them convinced, so I am ready. So I'm ready for your all success stories to help me inspire them, okay?
Hey, we might need to bookmark that little comment there about convincing people to get tested and come back to that later. What about you, Julie?
Well, I have my mom to partner with too, so we've been ganging up on everyone in the family, and in fact, she's had all of her grandchildren tested, and the really cool thing about that is that they're all starting to get interested in this, which is really neat. But she also got her cousin tested and her brother tested, and that's been really helpful in trying to figure out, because I can look at matches and figure out who's, which line, because if I know if my Uncle Jack, who's actually my mom's cousin, is a match, then it's probably on the Dyer line if it's the same match that I have. So it's kind of cool that way. Very
cool. So I've had, myself, both my parents, and my father's mother. So I have a living grandparent still, which is amazing.
Nice.
Just turned 92 last week. And so that's fun. And I have a list of who's next, right? My mom's sister, my dad's sister and brother. Just need to line them up. What about you, Anna?
A little hit list going.
Yeah.
I like that. I like having a list, and it's like, who are you going to target next? So I started with myself, and then I had my two parents tested. Then I was curious to see what my sisters inherited, how different they were from myself, and so I got them tested. And then I went to my dad's sister. She's my actually only living aunt or uncle on both sides. So I got her tested because I didn't have any grandparents. And then I started asking my mom questions about her cousins, because I just didn't know any, none of them were around doing anything. So I got 3 of her first cousins and 1 second cousin.
Oh, wow. So how many is that total? 9?
Well, 12.
Okay, wow.
Well, because 2 of them are still in the works, so
okay.
12.
So, Anna, you brought up something that maybe we should talk a little bit about for people who don't understand, which is the whole concept of what different people inherit. One of the reasons to test a lot of people is to see who inherits what.
Exactly.
So what does that mean exactly?
So that's a great question. We always say to people, you're carrying such a unique piece around because you've inherited 50% of your DNA from your 2 parents, and they receive 50% from their 2 parents, and so on. And so you're receiving DNA, little bits and pieces down from each of these ancestors, but you don't carry 100% of their DNA. You don't inherit 100%. So getting a sister tested or the oldest member of your family tested is going to essentially give you a better idea or better understanding of your picture, your puzzle. As you're putting these little pieces together, getting the oldest member, which is awesome that you got your grandmother tested.
Right?
A lot of people don't. And if you're watching this and you're the oldest member, get it for your posterity.
Yeah, absolutely. So ethnicity is one piece, and then cousin matching. So Anne, we'll kick it over to you. Talk to us about how you've looked at your cousin matches and how you're sorting through them, and is it changing your family history research at all? Or
yes, and let me tell you my success story, because this one is awesome. All right, so I have a I think it's my 3rd great grandfather. His name is Lansford Hopper, and he showed up in the 1870 mortality schedule, and the cause of death is murder. All right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So I've never I couldn't find any newspapers from that area, and I couldn't figure it out, right? And it wasn't he wasn't one of the people I was currently researching. So here comes cousin match, and a lady named Elizabeth is my 3rd cousin. We connect through Lansford and actually through a couple other people. And so when I found this out, I'm like, do you happen to know how he died? And she's like, of course I know how he died. Because she had this old family history, And he was digging on a road with his nephew. They got in a fight, and the nephew whacks him in the head with a shovel.
Okay, then.
Okay.
Wow.
But awesome story, right? But, well, not so awesome for him. But that was through DNA, right? So I was able to connect with her and get that information. Now, granted, it was a long time before that came through. I didn't get my DNA results, and there it was, right? It took a while, but sure. And I've got on my Gillespie line, we've never been able to prove which of the Gillespies about 4 generations back that we come from. But what I've been able to do, because of how many matches and how many people that are descendants of his brothers, this guy's brothers and sisters, we all match, and that's where we match. So I'm fairly confident I'm on the right track. And also with my Smiths, I've made that same connection. So it doesn't prove it 100%, but it gives me more credible evidence that I know I'm on the right track, which can help me figure out to keep pursuing that, and then it's not just something that I'm making up. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
So those are the things that I've been doing on those lines where I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% sure. It's given me, okay, here's another piece of evidence that really does help know that I'm on the right line.
Yeah, cool. What about you, Julie? Any success stories?
I haven't really gotten any success stories with connecting with anyone yet, but I've been trying to recently go through the matches and trying to figure out, as I said, my mom's cousin tested. But there's, it's interesting to see how the relationships pan out. There's one woman who shows up as a 5th to 8th cousin for me, but when I looked at my sisters, she's a 3rd cousin, and then for my uncle, she's a 2nd cousin. So I know there's got to be a close relationship, but she doesn't have a very big tree, so I haven't been able to identify exactly where, but I do know which line of the family and that type of thing. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is kind of cool. That reminds me of, I think I've shared this story before, maybe even on one of our little chats, but one of my favorite DNA success stories was from somebody who had a really small tree. It was a 2nd cousin match to my mother. We had no clue who this guy was based on his username. Put your real names as your usernames, people.
Side note.
He had no clue what this guy's real name was. He had 3 people in his tree, himself, his father, and his grandfather. I mean, what do you do with that, right? So, of course, I'm a genealogist. It meant I started researching his family tree.
Lucky for him, huh?
Right. And within just about 3 or 4 hours, I was able to make the connection that his grandmother and my great-grandmother were sisters. And so that was the relationship. And so I sent him a message and said, hope you don't mind. I dug into your tree a little bit. Don't know if this is new information to you or not. Anyway, he found me on Facebook the next day, was so excited. He and my mom connected and started chatting and sharing. Turns out they had actually met each other at a family reunion when they were children. And then he shared a photograph of me, of my great-grandmother as a child. It was a photo I'd never seen before, and it was particularly important to me because I'm named after her, and never knew her, and so that was a really big deal to me. That was probably my biggest success story.
That's okay. Give me chills.
I know.
That's the first time I think I've been able to tell that story without crying, by the way.
It would be, yes, that one does give me the chills.
I think one of my favorites is matching with another individual. So we came up as a 4th cousin match, similar surnames, but nothing drawing in, any shared ancestor hints or anything like that. And so I went to check out her tree, and I saw where my dad was in her tree. Or no, sorry, not my dad. My dad's father was in her tree. And I was like, wait a minute, I know this guy. And so I started following the chain. So I looked at his father, and she had a picture of him.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wait, is this the right person? Is this the same person? You start asking yourself that question.
Right.
And so then I started following up the chain. I found out that we had descended from the same 4th great-grandfather. So his son's son was my dad. So it was my dad's grandfather.
Oh, wow.
She had a picture of.
Oh, that is so cool.
And when I showed that picture to my dad, he was like, I've never seen what he looked like as a young or in his young 20s, pretty much is what it was. But then I looked at her tree. She didn't have any other pictures, and so I contacted her, and I was like, did you attach this to the wrong person? And she's like, no. She's like, I was going through pictures that I had inherited, and it was of this Finn Phillips. And she's like, so I decided to add him to my tree, put him in there, and I would benefited greatly from this picture. And then showing it to my dad was just, you know, a cherry on top.
Very
being
cool.
able to see that. So
very cool. So what I'm hearing kind of in all these stories is just this idea that DNA is just, in some cases, just another way to connect us with cousins who may have pieces of the story, which is really cool. I mean, we could do that without DNA, but it seems like it's being facilitated a lot faster with the DNA matches. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool.
And it also gives you evidence to help support theories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have theories, but that's also something else. I have lots of theories, but anyway.
Probably about a lot of things.
Yeah, you know me.
Or it's just instant friendship.
Yeah.
You know, you match with somebody and you're like, wow, we share genetic information that we inherited from a common ancestor. I think I shared this on the blog, but when I was at the FGF's conference and I was showing people my DNA matches, a guy was like, hey, that's me. And now we're friends on Facebook, sharing information a lot quicker, and things that you just don't think of, like, oh, someone might be interested in that.
Yeah.
And, you know, your matches are, I believe.
Well, and DNA is also, what I found, a way that people who maybe are not interested in traditional genealogy, they're getting interested in DNA, and so now I'm having conversations with some of these people on Facebook or through Ancestry messaging, and they have photos and information and heirlooms and stories that they might never have put into an Ancestry tree because they're not into genealogy, but the DNA drew them in.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like Juliana.
Yeah, I actually I'm here. I have a story with, it's actually a success story my mom had, and it's kind of just a little bit of serendipity because she was active in Chicago genealogy for a long time, and, you know, was in a lot of groups in the area here. And a friend of hers from a long time ago showed up as a match in her DNA. And so she's known the lady for 20 years on, and then all of a sudden turns out, oh, we're related. So we're like, we don't know. She's got Dooners in her tree. We've got Dooners in our tree. We don't know exactly where the connection is, but there's probably a connection through that line.
Very cool.
That is cool.
So what are some of the techniques or the ways that you guys are working with your DNA matches? You've got lots of family members tested. You have lists and lists. If you're anything like me, like my mom, I think, has 248 pages of matches. Like, what do you do with all of that information? How are you working your matches?
What I was doing is trying to go in and seeing some of the matches that we share in common, and then I'll find someone in their tree and then search for them in the other people that we've had tested's tree. Search for that, like an unusual surname, and then trying to make a connection, you know, with, you know, as I search the matches, it's going to bring up that person. And so if I know that they're related to Uncle Jack, that they're on the Dyer line, if I'm related to him too.
Okay. Are you using any magic sauce techniques like spreadsheets or I don't know? How you
I haven't gotten that advanced yet.
Okay.
Juliana can usually do a spreadsheet. That way.
Yes, they are my favorite tool, but I just haven't had a chance to really dive into it that deep.
Yeah. Well, and I've started some spreadsheets, and there's just so much data that, like, sometimes it's really easy to get overwhelmed really quickly.
Yeah.
But I like your tip about searching for unique surnames. I've had the most success doing that as well, picking that unique surname out of a line and saying, who else has this surname in their tree, and then going from there.
Yeah. The fact that we're able to now share results with other family members has really been helpful to me lately, too, because now I can see my sisters, and I can see my uncles and my cousins.
Perfect.
Yeah. Any other tips you have for us? You've been
I
doing this longer than any of us.
I would also consider using the maps and location feature, so you can search by surname and then just search by location and see what's pulling up, because a lot of times surnames change, and that's where our brick walls are.
Right.
You know, we're dead end at a certain place, and we're like, did they change their name? Did they come from a spaceship?
Yeah.
Did they destroy the records because they needed kindling for?
Yeah, I was trying to search for a bunch of different versions of one of my ancestors' surnames because they were Irish immigrants, and every time I've seen their name, Poland, it's Poling or Polan, or they never spelled it twice the same way.
Well, and even just not spelling variations, but you end up with families who completely change their surnames.
Right.
Or you end up with, you know, Scandinavian families who have patronymics where it changes every generation. So that location-based search, maybe I probably haven't used it as much as I should have.
And then be conscientious of where your brick wall is. If it's only in the last 4 generations, look at those matches that are, or 6 generations.
That makes sense.
For those matches. I think sometimes we'll start getting distracted by further distant matches, but if our tree's not there, it's going to be harder to make that connection. And then exploring, I like your technique of actually going in and doing some of the research on those lines, especially if you find a unique surname or a unique location. The same county, same time frame. Those are all good indicators of, hey, we share genetic information, and let's look at these unique places or surnames.
Cool. Very cool. Well, any other tips anybody has as you've worked with your matches? Anything else you're doing or anything you've heard that others are doing?
One of the things I've been doing too is focusing on the generations further back as I'm sorting through the matches. I'll look at their matches because they're going to be closer matches than mine. So if I focus on their fourth cousin matches, it's a little bit more manageable and then I can look and see, are they in these other trees.
Yeah, since we can share matches now, not even just with close family, you can share your matches with anybody, right? So I've requested sharing from some people, and that allows me to look at who they match with closely, and if I also match with those people, I know which line of their family I need to be focusing on to find that.
That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. I need to go do some research, guys.
Right?
And then a caveat of that, like you start with your shared. So, and something you could do is you could start with your shared ancestor hints and get them to share their matches with you, because at least you know the connection with them, and to see if there's anybody else that you also match with or don't match with.
Right.
Provide.
So if they're matching on my Gillespie line, then I know that that's the road that we share those, and then we can go down those. Yeah, I'm going to go try this new technique. Thank you, guys. You've been very helpful.
It's kind of fun.
It is.
Yeah, DNA is a lot of fun. Now, one of the questions we get a lot, and I just want to clear this up, right? Because we've spent a lot of time here talking about cousin matches, which for me is where the real, work the matches, that's where the real genealogical gold is. Talk to me about the ethnicity, right? Does the ethnicity give you anything that you can use to trace genealogically? Right? If it says I'm 2% German or whatever, and I have no known German ancestry, what can I do anything with that information?
It's up to your specific goals. But I think for me, the ethnicity portion is an interesting beyond the record information.
Okay.
We think about tracing our lines back to a certain area. My family goes into Scotland and England, and my ethnicity results are also there. So it confirms we've been there for quite some time, because think about the ethnicity portion is 500 to 1,000 years ago where your ancestors were living or mixing with. So maybe you'll never be able to trace that German line, but if you're back and you hit a dead line or a dead end in England, you're thinking, oh, maybe that's my German line.
Maybe they came from somewhere else.
Maybe they came from somewhere else, and so you kind of have to and as you get more people tested, where did that German ancestry come from? Does your grandmother also have it?
Yeah.
And so you can start asking yourself and start to pinpoint certain family lines that could have it, whereas, I don't know if it's going to tell, directly tie you into some Irish records or some German records, but it keeps you in the back of your mind of where else your ancestors could have come from.
Right. And I think, at least from my experience, some of those trace regions, right, I don't pay as much attention to them. But if I have 33% Irish, right, that's something worth at least focusing on. And I've been lucky enough to have 3 generations of my family tested. I can see exactly where that Irish came from in my family, which is fantastic, because then I know which direction to go.
And and mine showed up 38% Irish, and I know we're Scotch-Irish, right?
Are you trying to outdo me, Ann? Is that what that was?
Say what?
Are you trying to outdo me? Is that what that was? You're more Irish.
No, ma'am, I am not. Who could outdo you, my dear? No one. But I don't have my 92-year-old grandmother's DNA. But so, it's is my Irish really Scotch-Irish? All I know is my sister has wanted to be Irish. So when I was able to show her that, she was all excited and interested, and I think I can use that to convince her to get herself tested in hopes that she'll be even more Irish than I am. Yeah. So I'm using that. But so Anna, there's certain groups, like the Scotch-Irish, we don't really have a way to identify that. Is that correct?
Not yet.
Okay.
So yeah,
Well, not everything might show up. It might show up as something a little bit more overarching.
Right. Yeah, and as we get more genetic information on certain populations, we hope to refine those regions and tease them out. But that whole region in itself, the UK, even Scandinavia, even West Europe, they're really, it depends on what time frame we're looking at, is when Ancestry was there. And so the fact is the technology has advanced so much that it's exciting that we've been able to even break out Ireland from Great Britain, and just imagine in a couple years what more we can do.
Yeah.
Right.
Science is cool stuff. And so, yeah, so the ethnicity, I kind of, along the lines of what Anne's doing with her sister, I see the ethnicity as a way to just get more people interested, get them excited, draw them into this web of genealogy. Right?
It is. It's kind of cool to see my nieces and nephews all really, as soon as their results come in, that's the first thing they go to. Is they want to see, what percent am I? And it's kind of neat to see the breakdowns. I really enjoyed looking at my dad's. His mom was Polish and his dad was Hungarian. He comes up as 96% Eastern European.
Wow.
Wow.
Pure.
More Eastern European than people who live there now, I imagine.
Yeah.
Hey, Anna, can you talk a little bit about the whole Native American thing? Because I get asked about that a lot, because everybody believes that they are Native American. Different. But how does that show up in the test? Or does it show up on the test?
Currently, our only region capturing that that question is Native American, but the Native American region is so large because it includes North America and South America. Currently, we haven't been able to have enough data to tease those two apart. We know genetically they look very different, and so with more information we'll be able to do that. And you're right. A lot of people think they have an Indian princess in their family tree, and they want to prove that. And so if you did have, or if you inherited that specific piece, it would show up in your results.
Okay. Okay.
So it's all about inheritance, though, right?
Yeah,
just because your DNA says you're not Native American, or just because your DNA says you're not Irish, doesn't mean you don't have ancestors who were that thing. It just means you didn't inherit that piece of the DNA.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because someone came to me and they're like, we know we have, a Native American, it's documented, it's on, the census record. She's like, but when my results came back, I was so much African. And so,
intermarriage in her family that brought that down. And that's one of the reasons to have multiple family members tested, right? Because you may not have any of the markers for that particular ethnicity, but your siblings might.
Right.
Yeah, and if you think you have Native American and Asian shows up in your DNA results, the parent group, the genetic parent group to Native America, some research has led us to believe that it's Asia.
So it looks similar. Yeah.
But that's just based on research today. So that may change and be redefined in the future.
Yeah, I love that we're so on the cutting edge of this science. We're just, as more data comes in, we get more information to draw more conclusions, and then more data comes in, and it's a process.
Go ahead.
So, because I remember we did an update recently, and then everybody who already had the DNA done got the results of the update, right? So any update, you don't have to get retested. You just magically get it like it's Christmas morning.
Right.
Awesome.
And kind of on that's the ethnicity side, right? Then we have back to the cousin matching, which is every time a new person is tested, their DNA is compared to everybody else in the database, and we're at what now?
500,000 people.
500,000 people. They get added to your list if their DNA matches you. So new matches magically show up all the time, too.
I go in about once every week or so and go and look for my new matches, especially my hen matches and that kind of stuff, just because it's fun.
It is fun. Absolutely it is. So do you guys have any final advice for people who are maybe brand new to genealogy? They came in through this DNA door. Maybe they don't have a tree of any kind yet. What's your advice to them?
For me, I would recommend to people, I know a lot of people don't like to have a public tree, but there's nothing that says you can't have more than one tree on Ancestry. And I have a tree that I attach to DNA, which is just my direct ancestors. And I keep updating it with more people I find, because I find people are much more likely to reach out to you if you have a public tree, because then they can see the matches. So if you want to get yourself set up and be more open, put what you know in there, even if it might be a mistake. It doesn't really matter at this point, because it will help you sort things out and maybe find people. I found somebody who actually corrected me on one of my ancestors. I had it wrong. I was delighted, right? It was so awesome because I could go fix it. So if you make yourself at least have some version of a public tree, you're much more likely to get people to reach out to you.
Okay, so start a tree, make it public. What about you, Julie? Any advice?
You know what? One of the things, and it seems like something little, but I always seem to be attracted to people who have pictures on their profile.
Right?
I don't know why. I just like, you're like, oh, I can see them. They seem more tangible than, and I shouldn't do that. Probably should look at everybody the same way, but it's just something that I always seem to go to those first.
Yeah, when you're scrolling through lists and lists of matches, those faces pop out at you. And anybody can do that. Just go to your profile information on your Ancestry account and add a photo. And it doesn't even have to be of your face, right? It could be your cat, whatever.
Yeah.
Or your dog. Or your dog.
And you know what? When you're going through and trying to match things, too, and you've got these long lists of all these names, and, you know, sometimes a lot of times it's just initials. When you go in and you see a picture, and then you see that picture on another person's match, you know, that you have a test for, it's going to strike a bell more than the other.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you? Any tips for people who are just getting into this?
I would say don't hesitate to reach out to your cousins. You know, I've reached out to several people who I've just asked questions about, and they're like, oh, I didn't know anyone cared about that. And then they respond, you know, give me lots of good information. And the reverse goes, you know, people reach out to you, even if you don't know what they're talking about or have any information, at least respond.
Yeah, yeah. Pay attention. I know some people aren't aware, but across the top of your Ancestry.com screen, you have that little envelope with the little numbers. Those little numbers mean you have messages waiting, probably from me. I need responses, people. That's what I'm saying.
Crista. Oh, I also have another recommendation. DNA kits make great Christmas presents. For those people you don't know what to buy for, or if you need to ask for something, I'm just saying, order now. It's a great Christmas gift. But you never know. The more people in your family you get to test, the more connections you're going to make. So
Absolutely. I'm not sure how that conversation goes. Merry Christmas, I need your spit.
Everybody's for dinner. Yay!
I love it. Okay, well, I love talking about DNA. I could keep talking about this forever, but Anna talks about DNA every week. Can you tell us where we can find that?
On the blog, on the Ancestry blog.
Okay,
every Wednesday, and if you miss it, just go to the Ancestry DNA category, and you'll find them all there.
There you go, blogs.ancestry.com, and there is an Ancestry DNA category, and you can see all of Anna's great articles about DNA, and leave your own comments, ask your own questions. Yeah, anything else, ladies?
You two have also done some really good live streams that people should go and check out. Because I know you've had Anna on your live streams before, so that's another place to go. Check out our YouTube channel.
Yes, we actually on the YouTube channel have a specific playlist for Ancestry DNA, so go check that out. Okay, well, this has been another episode of Between the Leaves. Thank you so much, ladies. It's been fun. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
It's fun.
All right, and we are no longer recording.